Hello, welcome to First Chapter Friday. We will be today reviewing a book and doing the first chapter of a book that I just had asked you guys to check out as a book trailer, and hopefully the book trailer got you interested, and now you're going to hear that first chapter and hopefully that'll really hook you and you will go check it out because it is a cool book about a society where people no longer need to speak to each other. You'll see what I mean in a minute. The book is called Open Minds, and it's by Kaye Quinn. It's part of a trilogy. Chapter 1. A zero like me shouldn't take public transportation. The hunched driver wrinkled a frown before I even got on the bus. Her attempt to read my mind would get her nothing but the quiet of the street corner where I stood. I kept my face neutral. Nobody trusted a zero to begin with, but scowling back would only make the driver more suspicious. I gripped my backpack and gym bag tighter and climbed the grime-coated stairs. The driver's mental command whooshed, the door closed behind me. Yeah, junior year was off to a fantastic start already. Students crammed the bus, which stank of too many bodies baking in the early morning heat. I shuffled past the dead silent rows, avoiding backpacks and black instrument cases. 2 years of being the invisible girl had taught me a few things. As long as I didn't touch an exposed arm or speak out loud, the blank spot of my mind would go unnoticed in the swirling sea of their thoughts, which was great until I needed a seat on a crowded bus. With a soft hiss of water exhaust, the bus lurched forward. I grabbed a sticky seat back to keep from falling on the 3 girls in deep mental conversation. 2 senior boys leered from the back row. The whole bus was within range, so they knew there were no thought waves beaming from my head. Yet, instead of ignoring me, they stared like hungry sharks. Last year, looks like those would have gotten them pummeled by my 6'2" brother Seamus. But Seamus had graduated, and the protective shadow he cast over me was gone. Whatever Sims the boys were thinking, students 4 rows ahead of them turned to watch. Shark Boy tipped his head to his friend, obviously discussing me as they stared. His friend's lips parted to show a sliver of teeth, and he gestured to the only open seat on the bus, right in front of them. I could complain to the driver, but she wouldn't believe anything a zero told her. Shark Boy's thoughts wouldn't carry over the mental chaos of the bus, and speaking out loud would only get me thrown off. I turned away from the wide grin on the boys' faces and slowly sank into the seat. My cheeks burned with the expectant stares from the back half of the bus, but I kept my gaze on the suburban houses ambling past the window. The heat of Shark Boy's hand reached me just before he brushed my bare skin, right below my t-shirt sleeve. I jerked away and clutched my gym bag like it was a shield. Shark Boy and his friend rocked back with noiseless laughter, as if touching a zero was the height of things funny. I shivered in spite of the heat and decided to take my chances with the unfriendly driver. By the time my shaking hands found handholds to the front, we had rounded the corner to the school parking lot. I ignored the driver's insistent stare. As soon as the bus stopped, I pounded the button on her dash to manually activate the door and scurried out. Once inside the main entrance of the school, a scuffle of feet warned me to step back as a group of girls sailed past, looking all mesh with their band shirts and their synced steps. One, Trina, cut too close and knocked shoulders with me. At first, I thought it seemed intentional, but then she acted as though I was something that she would never touch on purpose, and that caused heat to rise to my face. Harassment from readers shouldn't get a rise out of me anymore, but I'd fallen out of practice, sticking close to home over the summer. Trina's snub wouldn't have hurt at all if her sweater wasn't still hanging in my closet. A casualty from a time when we had traded clothes and secrets. I guess she didn't miss it. I dug my schedule out of my backpack. At least the administration hadn't put me in Changelings 101 again. As if a class on mind-reading etiquette and self-control could help a zero like me. An anger management class would have been more useful. My first period Latin class beckoned from a dozen yards down the hall, its blue plasma lights gleaming like a lighthouse in a hurricane. I narrowly avoided a pair of students air-kissing and skittered to the classroom door. The new Latin teacher tried to be mesh with his shiny Nove fiber shirt. A circle of admiring students laughed silently at some mental joke. Seamus had warned me that I would need a hearing aid this year so that the teachers could whisper their lectures to me while instructing everyone else via mind talk. I had put it off, waiting for my brain to finally flip a switch so that I could become normal and hoping to get by in my classes until then. Meanwhile, to the teacher and his fans, I might as well have been a dusty trash can in the corner. I found a spot in the back and a knot of certainty tied tight inside me. I will never be like them. My chair gained gravity and sank me deeper into my seat. Long ago, everyone used to be zeros. When those first reader kids hit puberty and discovered that they could read minds, the world didn't know what to make of it. That wave of reader freaks grew up to have more reader freaks. And now, the only freaks were the people who never changed, like me. I physically shook that thought from my mind. Don't give up. Just because most kids changed by the time they were 13 or 14 didn't mean everyone did. Seamus didn't change until he was 15. Mom told me over and over she was a late bloomer. I told myself for the 100th time that the Moores simply changed late, and that I was the slowest of the bunch. The change could come any day. In the meantime, I would have to keep up in my classes any way that I could. If my teachers were all mind-talking this year, then I'd get that hearing aid and make do. If I gave up now, I would have no chance at college, much less any medical school. Students moved to their creaking metal desks, probably motivated by a thought instruction from Mr. Armando. Everyone pulled out their e-slates, and I peeked at my neighbor. We were starting with translations of the Aeneid, again. Although my thoughts sounded English in my head, I knew thought waves weren't a language at all. They could be read by any person over the change age, as well as by mindware interfaces. Yeah, even the bus was better at reading minds than me. But until the tech guys created a computer that could mind talk back, the world would need written words. Latin was quickly becoming mesh, being a root language. All the latest mindware had a Latin option. Plus, Latin was required for college, so mastering the ancient language wasn't optional. I scribbled with my stylus, trying to decode Juno's wrath against the city of Troy. Even after 2 years of Latin, my translations were still literal jumbo. Tantanea enemis calistibus ere? It meant Juno was wreaking her goddess anger on the Trojan people, yet The literal translation stuck in my head as vast minds of heavenly wrath. If I changed Tantanae to diminutas, it could just as easily describe the small minds of Warren Township High. I let out a long sigh. At least we weren't working in groups on the first day of class. I redoubled my efforts to force the translations into something better than gibberish. The bell gave a soft tone that disturbed the utter quiet of the room. I slipped past the other students, wrapped in their mental conversation. The crowds thinned at the back of the school, but I kept to the edges until I reached my locker. By the time I had my gym bag stowed away, the metallic sound of my locker door slamming shut echoed down a nearly empty hallway. At the far end, a group of readers had formed a tight circle, all facing inward. I cringed, knowing some freshman changeling was in the middle, being harassed by the small minds of heavenly wrath that populated my school. I dragged myself toward them, not wanting to get involved, but I couldn't stand to see another kid go through demons, driven mad by the change. Some kids fuzzed out on Obscura to escape the mental chaos of reading minds, but 3 suicides last year were sent spiraling by more than simply the voices in their head. As a zero, I endured dirty looks and menacing boys. It could get a lot nastier for the changelings. The girl huddled on the floor inside her ring of tormentors, clutching her head and squeezing her eyes shut, as if that could keep out the Sims that surrounded her newly minted reader mind. What they were doing was a misdemeanor thought crime, but I couldn't exactly turn the pravers in. The administrators might get their true memories under questioning, especially if they brought in a truth magistrate, but they wouldn't do that based on the word of a zero. "Hey!" My voice cut through the quiet. "Go be evil somewhere else." Their heads turned in unison, lit with astonishment. Of course they hadn't sensed me. They glanced at each other and then turned as a unit and walked down the hall in a creepy, synchronized way that readers sometimes did. Hassling me must not be worth the tardy. The changeling still sat with her eyes shut, clutching her knees and slowly rocking. I waited until the others disappeared into the chemistry wing before I edged over to her. I kept my voice soft so it wouldn't travel. "It's okay. They're gone." Her eyes snapped open. She scrambled away from me, banging into the locker wall. She braced herself up from the carpet and slowly backed down the hall. Even the harassed knew who was lowest on the social ladder. I shook my head. The changeling was on the wrong side of the pravers today, but if she survived the change, she might do something important someday, like heal people or rescue them from burning buildings. It's still possible, I told myself. The change could still come. But I wasn't sure I believed it anymore, and no one would trust a doctor whose mind they couldn't read. So, told you there's something interesting in their world. There will be a twist. Something does happen to her, but it's not like what happens to everybody else. And you should definitely read it to find out. Okay, have a great week and take care. Make sure you check out that book trailer if you haven't already seen it on Canvas. And have a great week. Bye.